This is Level Up Life After 40 with Shy P.
And Amy E., helping women over 40 to grow, reinvent, and stop settling for just getting by.
Because your best chapter might just be ahead.
Into another fantastic episode of Level Up Life After 40 with Shy P and Amy E. And today we are going to continue the conversation about food and what we eat and how that affects our hormones, specifically our hormones when we hit that menopausal age. So last week we discussed estrogen, progesterone, cortisol, and insulin. And we found that sugar sneaks up in our food more often than we realize, and that tends to be the number one culprit in causing adverse effects on our hormones because they're so heavily tied to diet and the sugars that we put in our bodies. So today we're going to take it a step further and talk about gut health. Gut health is kind of a two-way street when it comes to hormones. So gut health affects hormones and your hormones affect your gut health. Estrogen as a hormone helps maintain the integrity of the gut lining. So as we discussed last week, when we get older, our estrogen levels decline. And have you ever heard of leaky gut syndrome? It's because the lining of your gut becomes more permeable because the estrogen decrease, which causes inflammation to increase. And that's what leads to some of those digestive symptoms like bloating, constipation, food sensitivities. All of those things become more prevalent. Remember when you used to be able to drink like gallons of milk? And now as you get older, you become lactose intolerant. A lot of that has to do with the fact that as your estrogen levels have decreased, that your body becomes more sensitive to some of those hormones.
Can I talk about food sensitivities real quick?
Sure.
I'm glad that you brought that up because I think a lot of people will focus on food allergies and things that could potentially kill them. But a lot of people have food sensitivities where they'll have symptoms that they may or may not notice. They just might feel a certain way, but they don't realize that's where it comes from. Some people can have a gluten sensitivity but not have celiacs. But I'm just going to be snarky and say not everyone has a problem with gluten. I don't think I have a problem with gluten, which is good because I like it. But corn, wheat, which I guess is gluten. Sometimes soy products, sugar is a big one, and dairy is another one. I have dairy and sugar sensitivities, and I do notice the differences, but it's not enough to kill me, so I still consume them. But I know that it's definitely doing something to my body. I think they do have food sensitivity testing now, not just food allergy testing. So it might behoove someone to go ahead and do that. And you mentioned that I'm going to talk about foods. I'm going to throw one out there real quick. There are some things that we eat, like I think probably poultry is one of the bigger ones, probably pork. I don't think beef is as much, but you are whatever they eat. So, and that's why hormones and things like people are having a problem with antibiotics and hormones and all the stuff because some of that gets stored in the meat and then that's what you're eating. So if you have a corn sensitivity, you're eating a corn-fed chicken, then there's a chance that you're going to have a little bit of a reaction. It may not be as much as if you ate like corn on the cob, but there still might be a little something there. So food sensitivity is probably a bigger deal than maybe people realize.
How you brought up that correlation of you are what they eat.
It's true.
Right? We don't think of it that way, but you're right. They're eating foods and then we're eating those foods. So it all adds up. A lot of us, when we get older, we're told to take a probiotic, which I personally take one every single day because your gut contains trillions of microbes that help regulate your hormones. And when those hormones get out of balance, like if your estrogen is not being produced efficiently, when you get those hormone fluctuations during menopause, the hot flashes, all that other stuff, a lot of it has to do because that gut health, those microbes are not in balance. And when they're in balance, that's what causes those menopausal symptoms to really increase.
Right. And it also contributes to like your satiating hormones, the ones that make you feel like you're satisfied if you've eaten, and it affects insulin, which I don't know if you want to review the insulin resistance again real quick that we talked about last week, just so people know how important that is.
Yes, I will revert back to that, but some of the things you might be looking at, if you notice that you've got increased bloating, if you've noticed that you have constipation around hormonal shifts, new food sensitivities, which Cheyenne mentioned, increase in abdominal weight. For some reason, we start gathering a lot more of that belly fat, which we'll also talk about later. But that increased body fat, specifically around the abdominal area, brain fog has a lot to do with some of the digestive issues. I know we all have it. And then obviously more frequent IBS symptoms during stressful periods. All of those things, if you're experiencing all of those, chances are it is probably due to some hormone imbalance in your gut. And so, one of the things that they recommend to support gut health, I'll just jump right into them, is obviously eat 25 to 35 grams of fiber every day. So, really be conscientious about reading those labels to make sure that you get 25 to 35 grams. Most of us probably are not getting that much
Mm-mm.
of
No,
like good fiber. Fermented fruits like yogurt, sauerkraut.
that is so good for your stomach. In fact, sometimes when my mom is not feeling well, she will eat sauerkraut. Yeah.
Interesting.
Mhm.
If you can stomach it, more power to you.
You're
Um,
German, you don't like sauerkraut?
no, I'm not a fan, and as German as I am, that's kind of a my grandfather's rolling in his grave as we speak. How
Wow,
can I
that's
know?
one of my favorite foods.
Uh, what also helps is prioritizing protein at meals, and Cheyenne will go into a little bit more detail about the different types of protein, but I think as we age too, we don't get enough protein anymore. We really don't. So make protein a priority, especially in the morning. They say if you can consume your protein in the morning, it helps kind of give you that more satisfied feeling throughout the day so that you're not having those sugar crashes either. Obviously, managing stress through exercise, meditation, time outdoors. Sleep is the most obvious. Limit alcohol and highly processed foods, and then stay physically active. All of those things are going to help with your gut health.
Yes, and the fact that our gut health can affect, like, our insulin and our cortisol, this is just me surmising, but I think that can affect that belly fat that you talked about a little bit too,
Well,
especially,
yes, it's
like, the
it's your
cortisol
body's
levels.
way of how it ends up storing that fat,
Huh.
and it happens to be around the midsection. Cheyenne, do you want to jump into some of the foods that you've kind of discovered, and then I can go into inflammation?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the fermented foods, like you mentioned, you've got your Greek yogurt, kefir's good, sauerkraut, which I love, kimchi. So, a lot of your fermented foods are good. You can find a lot of things in the Asian market as far as that goes. I've made recipes with like fermented black beans, which did not smell good, but the food was really good. If you're like Amy, I guess avoid the sauerkraut and, and go for the yogurt. And then the fiber rich foods, of course, you have beans and lentils, which those are both really good sources of protein and fiber. Oats, fruits, and vegetables. But fruits and vegetables are going to show up in every single category that we talk about as far as the food that you need to help maintain any of your good hormone level because your body can actually work with what is in them.
Nice. Thank you for recapping on the food part of it because food does play such an important role in hormone regulation, more so than we realize. Another culprit that we tend to experience as we get older is inflammation. What is the correlation between hormones and inflammation? And I guess the easiest way to think about it is think of your body like a thermostat. So, hormones help regulate your body's inflammatory response. When hormone levels are balanced, inflammation tends to stay under control. But when hormones fluctuate or decline, inflammation can increase. It's kind of unfortunately, it's a catch 22 with these because when your hormone levels are out of balance, you get inflamed. And when you become inflamed, your hormones get imbalanced.
It is a whole thing. And inflammation is one of those things where it sounds really terrible, but it can be purposeful as far as sometimes like healing or letting us know that there's a problem. But when we have chronic inflammation, that's when we're just like, whoa, whoa, whoa. But yeah, it's just like Amy said, it's this fun balancing act that we have to do.
Well, and a lot of it has to do with cortisol, which is the stress hormone. That's related. Cortisol, as we mentioned last time, it's necessary. It's that fight or flight response. When cortisol levels are high, you're on high alert. But when they become chronic and you have chronic stress, your body ends up becoming less responsive to the cortisol. So your body then thinks it needs to produce more and more of it in order to get that same reaction. And as a result, over time, inflammation starts increasing. And that's where you experience the fatigue, the weight gain, digestive issues tend to be more common when you've got high levels of stress. How many times have you ever, when you're under a stressful situation, your stomach starts to hurt?
Hmm.
There's a reason for that, because your body is saying you need to control the amount of stress. And I'm going to give you a little warning sign by making sure that you don't feel good.
And I was going to say, and there are some people that when they're especially nervous, they're running to the bathroom for a variety of reasons.
Yes, you're right. And it could be nervous and it could be, yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
What are the symptoms of chronic inflammation that people should look for?
Well, the symptoms are joint pain and stiffness. So once again, if you're starting to experiencing some of these things, chances are you've got some sort of inflammation that's going on inside your body and you might want to see your doctor about it. But joint pain and stiffness, brain fog, fatigue. Remember how you used to feel like you had so much energy and now you just feel constantly tired? And not necessarily like I want to sleep tired, but just like, ugh, how am I going to get through this day? Tired, fatigue. And unfortunately, when we hit that point, that's when we usually result to reaching out for our energy drinks, which we talked about last time. That is not a good option, but that's how we try to combat it. Once again, weight gain around the abdomen, digestive issues, mood changes. If things that used to not bother you are now all of a sudden like just setting you on edge, or the littlest things just make you angry or even sad. Those mood changes are probably a symptom of something is off balance with your hormones and there's inflammation going on there. Poor sleep, and the obvious one, hot flashes that feel more intense.
Yeah. And then the poor sleep, there have been studies that when you do not sleep well, you usually make poorer food choices, which just creates this horrible cycle for people.
Hmm.
And I've been a victim of it. I mean, obviously, we talk about the energy drinks. Amy and I were gonna record yesterday. I had an energy drink. She said something. I had a point, and I lost it mid-sentence. So, it's like my brain fog was right there, and I think it's just because of the garbage that I had kinda put in my body yesterday. And I'm just, we're learning as much as you guys are sometimes with these podcasts. We're not perfect. We're going along the journey with you. So, just full disclosure right there, it really makes a difference.
One of the ways to help reduce inflammation, and it kind of goes along with everything that we talked about, but Mediterranean style eating patterns. What's the big thing about the Mediterranean diet? Less processed foods.
Mhm.
They eat whole, rich, made from the earth, grown by the sun in the rich soil, meats, fruits, vegetables, things of that nature. Strength training. A lot of women, we just go to the gym and we think we're going to walk on the treadmill for 45 minutes. And we're wondering why we're not losing weight or why we continue to gain weight. As your body gets older, you need to start doing more of that strength training. It is going to help with bone density. Building lean muscle helps you burn fat throughout the day. I tell women all the time when it comes to working out, strength training is the most important thing you need to do when you're at the gym, because when you have muscle, your body is burning fat all day long. Muscle consumes more calories than fat. Muscle takes more energy to maintain. So when you're building muscle, the foods you eat are going to fuel those muscles that you're building. When you just do cardio, you're only burning calories in that 30 to 45 minutes that you were walking on the treadmill.
Mhm. We're not dogging cardio, that's very important.
Right. Oh,
It
yeah. We always recommend do a walk, do some form of exercise. But if you can add strength training to your
Yeah,
regular routine, even if it's just 3 days a week and you just do a circuit. Go to the gym, hit one of every one of those little machines, do 15 reps, and you're in and out in 30 minutes, call it a day.
yep. And try to lift reasonably heavy.
Yes. While low weight, high repetitions is good, to build muscle, you're going to want to lift 60% of your max.
Mhm. Yeah, that I would have to look up that number. Lifting heavier, especially as we're older, is more important, but then that's also where some of that, protein is gonna come into play too, because you need to make sure that you have enough protein to repair those muscles. So and I think I read, and it's probably still the same, they said that chocolate milk, like actual cow's milk, chocolate milk is one of the best things you can drink after a workout because it has, like, the right amount of sugar and calories and protein and stuff, and it's just supposed to be what's really good for refueling your muscles.
Know that.
Mhm. I personally don't like chocolate milk, believe it or not.
Be careful about those protein shakes after a workout. A lot of them, while they taste really good, the reason they taste really good is because they have a lot of sugar, and a lot of them are adding unnecessary calories to your diet. So you wonder why you worked out and you've burned all these calories, and then you had this great protein shake that just replenished 1,000 calories that you just worked so hard to burn, and then you're going 2 hours later and having breakfast or lunch.
Mhm.
So just be conscientious about that. And going back to women always say, I don't want to lift heavy because I don't want to bulk up. Trust me, girlfriend, you are not going to bulk up. In order to get that bodybuilder physique where they're like the bulging muscles, that is consistent diet, exercise. That's their living. They're doing that as their career. So they are in the weight room literally 3 to 4 hours every single day and consuming 50 to 60 grams of protein plus a day. You're not going to bulk up. I promise. Push yourself at the gym, lift those heavier weights. You will definitely notice a difference in how you feel.
Yeah, your energy will increase dramatically, and, because Amy works out in the morning, I'm kinda willy-nilly when I work out, if I work out, which working on it, but if you work out in the morning, I think oftentimes people will find they make better choices throughout the day because it's like, I just worked my tail off for an hour. I am not eating that. Like, it is not worth it because you have paid the cost. And so a lot of times you're more inclined to eat healthier things, but also because it does help with some of those hormone things too, like you said, like with reducing the cortisol and stuff. So you're going to be less likely to eat unhealthy things just kind of naturally anyway because your body's not gonna crave them nearly as much. I agree on the protein shakes. When I have a protein shake and because I don't like smoothies and stuff like that, I like just unadulterated food typically. But, the protein shakes, that's one of those things that if you are not a morning breakfast person, you can get a decent kind of protein shake to have in the morning. And every now and again, just so I have the satisfaction of having chewed something, I will have a protein shake and maybe a piece of fruit. Or if it's after the workout, I'll have the protein shake and then I'll have a salad for dinner or whatever. My protein shake is only 200 calories. It does have an artificial sweetener in it, but it's the artificial sweetener that doesn't affect insulin and stuff like that. I think it's a stevia sweetened.
So just do your research on them, is what we recommend.
That was you always take my long sentences and make them nice and short.
I speak in bullet points. I'm guilty. Cheyenne, you did some really cool research on different types of foods and how they play a role in our hormones. And a lot of them were really kind of shocking to me. Can you kind of let everybody know what you discovered?
Yeah, and I'm gonna be reading some of my notes. So artificial sweeteners, because everybody thinks that drinking a Diet Coke is fabulous. We kinda talked about that before. There are some that still will affect your insulin levels just as much as regular sugar. Um, so they can affect your gut bacteria and affect your insulin signaling. They can alter your appetite regulation and increase cravings in some individuals. Now, I will go ahead and tell you that there are certain artificial sweeteners where I get very hangry and I have had some days, and I don't know if it's the caffeine or the artificial sweetener, but I don't notice it as much when I'm having tea with, and I do put sugar in my tea, but when I have tea with sugar, I don't notice this as much. But when I have energy drinks, like in the morning, I can have, I want to call it a hot flash, but I don't know if it's even a hot flash, but I will just sweat. I will just start sweating. It is ridiculous, but it's typically just with certain kinds of energy drinks. Um, and I also noticed, and I'm just going to throw this out there because when I'm eating correctly and I am not consuming these artificial sweetened energy drinks, if I miss a meal, I don't feel like I'm going to kill someone. I'm hungry. I recognize that I'm hungry, but I don't start feeling nauseous. My sugar doesn't completely crash. I don't feel like if I don't get to the nearest drive-through that I'm going to just like there's not going to be anyone left alive. So, I think artificial sweeteners can really really affect that gut health like we talked about. So that's a huge one. So energy drinks. What? Increased cortisol. They disrupt your sleep. I'm probably a victim of that. Increased anxiety. That's a big one. How many people are feeling anxious and nervous and stuff? Check what you're putting in your body. And then energy crashes, which is true. And that's another one of those vicious cycles because you're going to feel really good. And then your body's going to be like, well, you need a little more of that. No, that's what's causing your problem. I looked up soy because I've heard a lot of different things about soy. It does contain phytoestrogens. They're not the same as human estrogen, but some of the benefits, it can help reduce hot flashes. It gives you bone support and it does have heart health support. In fact, back when I was a vegetarian, I used to drink soy protein shakes all the time. But food sources, edamame, tofu, tempeh, unsweetened soy milk, and I think a lot of these things can be used throughout your diet. Like you can put the edamame in your salads. Tempeh, you can get seasoned tempeh, cook that up, throw that in a salad. We actually had, it was like bacon flavored tempeh. It's basically just like a smoky seasoning. But we cooked that up and put it in our salads before, and it was just a nice smoky, nutty taste. So people, if you think this stuff is not good, well, you're wrong. It's very tasty and it can be made very tasty. But a moderate consumption, you don't want it to be your whole diet. In fact, I have done some different programs with Oxygen Magazine, and these people come up with these great workouts and these diet plans. But then when it came to like the vegan or vegetarian, they basically just said substitute everything with soy. And it was just, well, one, it was lazy, but two, no, don't do that. And it gets very boring to try to eat soy at every meal. But I think you can put some sprinkled in your diet, especially if you have it in a Chinese preparation. General Tso's tofu, delicious. So you can have it and it can be quite tasty.
But
I
do other
looked
things
up,
then other than that to get your protein as well. Beans, legumes, nuts, things of that nature, right?
yeah. I looked up meat too because obviously a lot of the stuff that we came back with is fruits and vegetables. And Amy, how much of that should be your plate?
50% of your plate should be fresh fruits and vegetables.
Yes, and mostly, and honestly, mostly veg. You can have like a piece of fruit, and I know because fruit is sugar. I still think you should eat the whole fruit. The fiber is good for you. I don't think you should shun it. But definitely eat more veg than fruit. But meat, it does have protein, it has iron, it has zinc, it has B vitamins, and I wanna throw this out there for any of my vegan friends. You need B12. You're gonna have to take a supplement for it if you're not eating meat, because I think meat is the only way you can actually get B12 in nature. If you're not getting enough B12, you're still gonna feel tired and you're gonna wonder why you feel like crap, and that is why. It's going to help support your muscle, stabilizing your blood sugar, and healthy aging again, because you get pressured after 40 to eat protein. Meat's one of the easier ways to get it. Now, I have read some vegan publications, so they could be biased, but they talk about that you don't necessarily need as much protein as everybody says because your body can utilize the vegetable protein a little bit easier and better. And you can get things like the beans that we've talked about, quinoa, the soybeans and the tofu like we just talked about. So there are very good vegetable sources of protein. And the nice thing about a lot of these is that they're not expensive because you can get a steak for like 20 bucks, but you can get a can of beans for a buck 29. Your best choices, of course, we know are lean meats. So you've got fish, chicken, turkey, lean beef, pork tenderloin, eggs. I love eggs. I think they're a great source. And I like things that are versatile, it can be put in anything, and I think an egg does that. And your fatty fish, you wanna have the good fatty fishes, which, of course, salmon, sardines, trout, and mackerel. And then, of course, I looked up dairy too, just because I know so many people have a sensitivity. And then I just wondered, does it cause a lot of inflammation and whatever? But it does have your calcium, your protein, your vitamin D. And again, you wanna lean towards your kefirs and your yogurts if you're going to consume dairy. And then you have the other issues that Amy talked about, where if you have bloating or digestive discomfort, probably you have a food sensitivity that's affecting your gut health. And then maybe that's not a food that you want to have in your diet. I also looked up herbs and spices because we always hear, oh, you need to take this, you need to have this. And everybody goes on like a turmeric kick and takes turmeric supplements. So, turmeric, very good for you. It can help support and prevent inflammation. And turmeric, from what I understand, it needs to be consumed with black pepper if you're eating it fresh. So put that in your eggs, your very versatile eggs. Sprinkle some turmeric, a little black pepper, some salt, you're good to go. Scramble those up. Ginger is very good for digestion. That's another one of those things. That's why they tell you like ginger ale if you have a sick stomach, because that can help with that tummy stuff. Cinnamon with blood sugar.
We talked last week, instead of filling your coffee with that artificial vanilla flavored whatever it is, add a little bit of half and half and some cinnamon, and it'll give it that bit of sweetness.
That's true. Yeah. And I do like cinnamon, and I'm trying to think like if you drink a cider, add some cinnamon. And protein pancakes, like if you get the Kodiak cakes and you're whipping up a protein pancake, sprinkle some cinnamon in there. It's delicious. Garlic, which is very good for cardiovascular health. I've heard that my whole life. Rosemary is good in antioxidants. Sage, it has that it can help support some of your menopausal symptoms. So it would be wise to eat sage. See what I did there? All right. Peppermint is also good for digestion. And then parsley is rich in antioxidants and nutrients. So don't underestimate when you're throwing handfuls of parsley and things. And then the last thing that I thought would be good to discuss is kind of eating organic and free range. You do want to try to eat as much organic as you can, typically because you just don't want all those pesticides and things on your food. If you cannot get fresh food, frozen is your next best choice. Canned is not terrible. Just get some vegetables in you. But normally frozen is good because when they pick it, they basically flash freeze it, so it's, like, just as fresh and has just as many nutrients as it did when they first picked it. So that's if you wanna eat something out of season, I would get frozen than something that's been shipped from somewhere else because they're shipping it green so that it gets to you halfway ripe.
Great point.
Mhm. Um And then if you can, just things that you eat frequently, buy organic. If you can grow stuff yourself in a pot, try that. It's very satisfying, especially like some of the herbs we talked about. Start a little herb garden in your kitchen. And then fruits and vegetables, just put them in your body. Organic is good, but if you can't do organic, just eat them. Wash them really well, but eat them.
Thank you. I did a little quick pull up on vegetables that are high in protein content. Obviously, edamame, which is young soybeans, that's going to be the number one. But green peas, 8 to 9 grams of protein per cup. That's a lot of protein. Brussels sprouts, 4 to 5 grams. Spinach, asparagus, artichokes, broccoli, kale, and even mushrooms have some protein. So, if you're going to eat vegetables and you're going to be choosy about which ones, any one of those is a great source of protein.
Mhm. Thank you for that. Yeah. And I'm a big fan. I'm just gonna soup. I love soup, and you can use like a chicken broth or a bone broth, which bumps up the protein content in it as well. But you can put in these higher protein veg, like she mentioned, and a little bit of meat, and you have a beautiful complete meal, and it makes your life easy. So I don't necessarily have anything else, like just some of my ending stuff. So I don't know if you have any other points you want to make, Aim.
I just have an ending too, so go for it.
Okay. Well, the takeaways that I have are you want to eat enough protein, whether it's a vegetable source or a meat source, eat more fiber, which is huge, 25 to 35, you said, right, grams per day. Um, Eat things that are going to support your gut health because that's going to probably affect you more than anything because has such a big part in the hormones. Manage your stress, prioritize your sleep, move your body, like Amy said, hit the gym 3 days a week and lift some weights. Start somewhere. Limit ultra processed foods. I think that's probably the biggest takeaway that you can have today. Stay hydrated, build your muscle, of course, and then focus on consistency and not perfection. So if you go through the drive-through and you get the sugary coffee, all is not lost. You can correct it at the next meal. It's okay. It's not over at that point.
I love that you mentioned that because I just want to add on the fact that this is not a diet that is so restrictive that you have to give up everything that you love and that you've consumed your whole life. We did this episode because we want you to be consciously aware of what you're putting in your body and how that affects your hormones, which in turn affects how your entire body operates. Your hormones are literally probably one of the most important regulators that control so many different things within our bodies. And so all the suggestions that Cheyenne made are absolutely fantastic. And just remember, you got this. Just a quick reminder, everything we share on this podcast is for inspirational, personal growth, and real-life conversation. We're not doctors, therapists, financial advisors, or legal experts. Just two women sharing experiences, lessons, and stories to help you level up your life. Always do what's best for you and seek out qualified professionals when you need specific guidance. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't, and remember, you got this.